The Ries Report with Al and Laura Ries.
Politics and marketing. The law of the word says, a brand should strive to own a word in the mind of the consumer. That's how powerful brands are built. Now, your word can be an idea, an attribute, a category, a segment, a consumer, or a price. Just needs to pick one thing to focus on. What it simply cannot be is all things to everybody. That does not build a powerful brand in the mind of the consumer. So let's take some look at some examples of powerful brands and the words that they own in the mind. The Real Thing. That word's owned, of course, by Coca-Cola. Unassembled furniture. That word owned by IKEA. Internet search. Of course, it's Google. Internet videos. YouTube. Expensive coffee. Word owned by Starbucks. Expensive Japanese car. It's owned by Lexus. Interesting to note that some of these words aren't terribly exciting. They're very simple, but they're powerful because they are so simple and these brands are so strongly associated with them and has focused on owning those words in the mind. Expensive watch, Rolex. Cheap, Walmart. See, many times you can sell a lot of different things. Walmart sells everything, but they do focus on something, and that's low prices. And that's led to a very powerful brand around the world. We also have cheap chic, and that's, of course, Target. Curiously strong, that's a word owned by Altoids. They focus solely on that word and reinforcing it through very effective advertising. Hypoallergenic cosmetics, Clinique. Organic groceries. Again, a brand took this idea and made it very, very important today. And today consumers are interested in this, and they're really interested in Whole Foods, the brand that represents the idea of organic groceries. The most difficult marketing job? Well, I think it's running for the White House. The U.S. presidency is a very, very difficult job to get. We also like to call it the political Olympics, because as in politics, as in the Olympics, like the famous commercial says, you don't win silver in the Olympics, you lose gold. Second place is no place. Think back to 2000. George Bush and Al Gore, a very, very tight race and two very, very well-known politicians. How do you succeed in politics? How do you win that election? Well, you build a strong brand. And you do that by owning a word in the mind. So whether you're running for the White House or you're selling a bar of soap, it's the same thing. It's all about building a brand and owning a word in the mind. So what word did George Bush own? Well, in the 2000 elections, he owned compassionate conservative. That was a very, very powerful idea, and I think won him the presidency. On the other hand, what word did Al Gore own? Well, what word did Al Gore own? I don't know. The problem was he didn't own a word, and that was a big, big problem, and I think cost him the presidency. Let's take a look at some famous politicians and the words that they owned that make us remember their presidency and got them elected into office. Bill Clinton was all about, it's the economy, stupid. Ronald Reagan was all about supply-side economics. That was the word his brand owned. The first George Bush was about read my lips, no new taxes. Very, very successfully won him the election back in 1988. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to win re-election because he did in fact give us taxes. Whoops, new taxes, and that was a problem. You can't undermine your brand by going against what your word is about. Read my lips, I lied. That was a problem. So how do you make a comeback? What if you make a mistake? What if people forget about you? How do you get your brand back? Well, it's the same thing. You have to own a word in the mind. You've got to focus on one key idea. What word does Gore own? Well, today he's made a fantastic comeback. He's won an Academy Award. How did he do it? By being all things to everyone? No, he did it by focusing on global warming, an idea he had credibility with and one he's focused exclusively on for the past 8 years. Gore had a terrible, terrible falling out with the American public, but today he's back and he's stronger than ever. What idea does he own? How did he do it? Well, he is focused on the word peace and has become a very effective communicator and powerful in the world scene. A politician's worst nightmare is, of course, owning the wrong word. It can be terribly, terribly devastating. Think John Kerry in the last election. He unfortunately owned flip-flopper. Not a good word. Walter Mondale owned "I'll raise taxes." Again, that's not likely to get you elected. Barry Goldwater was known as an extremist. Quite damaging. Lyndon Johnson was best known for the Tet Offensive, not something you want to be associated with. So what about the 2008 elections? It's what we're all talking about here in the United States. And we've got a lot of people running, a lot of excitement, and a lot going on. Who was the early leader on the Democratic side? Why, it was Hillary Clinton. A lot of talk about the money she was raising, what she was doing, and a lot of early support. What word did she try to own? Well, her and her advisors wanted to emphasize experience. Of course, she'd only been in the Senate a few years, and most of her experience came from being First Lady, so they wanted to make sure they beefed up her experience angle, and that was what they really pushed. Unfortunately, another word has come onto the scene. Who's surging now? Why, it's Barack Obama. And he's very strong. He's strong because he has focused on one word that is resonating very much so with the electorate, and that word is change. It's something many of us want, and the idea of change has gotten massive publicity for Barack Obama. Here he is on the cover of Newsweek magazine, and his quote, "Our time for change has come." And this is something that is really, for a relatively unknown politician, he has a real chance at actually winning the presidency. Of course, Clintons are not sleeping. As soon as they saw this, they went, whoops, what are we doing? Things have changed. So the Clintons have jumped on change. And today we see Bill Clinton talking about change with a big banner behind him. And of course, Hillary's new slogan, change, the countdown to change. Will it be too late for them to also focus on change? We'll see. Who's going to get the nomination? Is it going to be Clinton, Obama, or Edwards? Edwards, wait a minute. Is Edwards still in it? In fact, Edwards is still in it. And the problem is, though, what word does Edwards own? He doesn't own one. And that is a huge problem, which is, I think, going to lead him to pull out sooner rather than later. The Clinton brand is strong. There's no doubt about that. But Obama is gaining traction because he is focused on a word that has resonated. Will he be able to do it? I don't know. Only time will tell what changes will occur. This has been the Ries Report, and I'm Laura Ries.